Hello, welcome to part three of the Digital Storytelling Project. Um, in this part, we will be discussing secondary dimension, which basically focuses on appearance, citizenship, educational background, individual interests, personal experiences, social economic status, belief systems or religion, geographic location, relationship status, and family status. My attitude towards appearance is very personal because growing up, um, I was always teased for being dark skinned. I have eczema, so my eczema was really horrible growing up. So I was definitely teased about that. And, I was skinny. People thought my mom was starving me because I was so skinny. So appearance to me, the outlook on appearance has changed for me as I grew up. Um, but during my middle school years, I really cared about how I looked, you know. Um, but in high school, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do what is right for me, and I'm going to dress how I want, look how I want, because I know when a person gets to know me, they're gonna see that I'm not the person they thought I was. You know, I do have feelings. I take pride in what I do. And from there, when I was in high school, it was a transition from sophomore to junior. You realize the only person that really you need to make happy is yourself. Um, I really learned that in high school. Citizenship for me, America was my view on that is America was built on immigrants. So this should be a country where people can come in and basically acquire the same rights as people who are already here because none of us was none of our ancestors were born here except Native Americans. So it's like I see the border control and everything going on today. Okay, cool. But we also were a country where people fled to escape from their homelands when there was genocide and civil war. We were that country that they came to. It's like, hey, we're your where you flee. Where your asylum. We take care of you. You don't have to go back home. You don't have to deal with the killings and the murders and the genocide and the civil wars and all that good stuff because we're here to help you. Now this has become a country where we are condemning people for running here. We think that the people that are running here are the bad people when in fact they're not. Some of them okay, everybody's not good. Okay, cool. But when it's all said and done, you're turning away people who are not only born here, but the ones who fled here because, I don't know, of religious persecution or whatever reason. And I feel anybody should come in this country. Of course, they should, be able to sustain themselves, get the right documentation and all that good stuff. But if they are coming here to seek asylum, to run from what it was someone trying to kill them, I feel like they should be able to stay. Period. When it comes to educational background, mine's personally, um, I was that honor roll student, um, until I got around my junior year in high school. Then I started to, slack a little bit. Um, but throughout my college years, I've had a lot of life experiences that happened, a lot of deaths in my family that really affected me as far as my education. And at one point in my undergrad year, I was actually on probation, academic probation for, my grades not looking good. But I had to snap myself out of it because I'm like, no one's going to coddle me anymore. And since then, I've been on like my education is first before anything else. Um, and I'm not doing it for anyone else. I'm doing it for me. Me and me only. I feel education can get people far, but I feel like being able to talk to someone, being able to network, even if it's not a traditional education, you can be educated through the military or trade, building your own business, etc. As far as individual interests are concerned, I feel a person's environment influences what their individual interests would be. Mine, for example, mine was, reading. Not a lot of reading goes down east end of Newport News, but I loved books. That they allowed me to use my imagination. They took me to a place where I wasn't. I was downtown. I was in a low income neighborhood. Drug dealers lived right next door to me. And to get away from all of that noise, don't get me wrong, I had my neighborhood friends, but to get away from the chaos and the noise, I just started reading. My mom always had me in like an after school program. In high school, I did band, I did soccer, I did all that so I wouldn't get caught up. But my interests really took me to a place of my own reality. And as I grown up, I haven't, I know what's going on around me, but I choose to keep myself out of it. I don't want to be a part of it. Um, anything negative, I should say, anything negative. So I've grown up to remove myself from certain things that I don't sit well in my spirit. The energy is off. I won't continue whatever it is. And I have to thank my mother for that. As far as personal experiences, again, a person's environment determines their personal experiences. Um, People often react to certain things differently, and that's why everybody's personal experiences is different. In some ways, it may be the same. As for me, I don't have too many personal experiences that are like, you know, unusual. Of course, there was a time of puberty and emotional uh, needs, um, mental needs. At one point, I was suicidal in my high school years slash my early college years. Um, and that was just something about, me and being depressed and the way the world, like all the world's problems was on my shoulders. I felt like it needed to be on my shoulders. But what I had to realize was, you know, I can't control everything. I have a personal philosophy that says you can't stop things from happening in life. Life is going to throw every situation at you. It's how you react to it that determines, you know, how strong you are. How you react to something is simply up to you. You can choose to boast about it, or you can just deal with it properly. You don't have to lash out. You can like think about it like, is this gonna be the best possible solution for me if I react negatively to this situation? Socioeconomic status in America is very important. As soon as you tell someone where you're from, they automatically judge you. Um, I tell, I say all the time, I'm from downtown Newport News. People are like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'm from downtown 25th and Chestnut. They're like, really? Like, you didn't get, what, like, we didn't expect that. We thought you were from, like, I don't know, Farmington or something, which is a very affluent neighborhood here in Hampton. But I'm like, no, I'm from downtown Newport News. My mom always had the saying, you don't have to look like where you grew up. And I actually live by that, you know what I'm saying? And when she told me that, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, we don't live in the best house. We don't drive the best car. But that shouldn't, that shouldn't say anything about my character. Like, my character, my personality should speak for itself. And that sometimes baffles me when people judge people based on their appearance. And I think it's the most ridiculous thing. And same with social economic status. Um, People judge by how much you make or where you live. Some people live in low income houses because they want to save money. They don't want to go broke, and no one wants to live for, as in keeping up with the Joneses, if you really can't keep up. As previously stated in the earlier parts, I am Christian, but I do believe that people should have the right to worship how they want. Um, that pretty much gives a blueprint of what type of person one is when you look at their belief systems or their religion, and if they practice those religions or belief systems, that usually tells you what their character. You know, um, there are some people who are radicals, and that can be a bit extreme. But I'm speaking of the people who are, they're not necessarily religious, but they find a certain peace, find something to believe in, a certain peace or a certain serenity that they find in their systems of belief. But again, I am Christian. Um, I do believe it gives me peace. It has helped me center, focus my goals and aspirations. Um, Throughout my years, I've always been in church, but now it's like it's my life. Like I don't like I pray before doing anything. Um, and it just gives me peace and joy. Geographic location um can affect the person. What I mean by that is, for example, I am from downtown Newport News. You know, I'm used to when my head is getting cloudy and I need some peace, I would walk to the water, and that would be the Chesapeake Bay, and that would calm me down. Well, that was when I was younger. Now I live uptown, almost 15 minutes from Busch Gardens. There is a pier on Denby, and I go out there. I just recently found out about it, and I go out there and I sit and I just clear my head. Um, to some people, Water to me is peaceful. It represents peace and the depths of my emotions. And when I'm near it, I feel calm. If I'm near a pool, I'm calm. If I'm near the beach, I'm calm. Ocean, calm. Bathtub, calm. Shower, calm. Um, and that's a geographic location. And it affects my environment and the people around me because if I'm not peaceful, I'm not calm, then everybody's gonna hear about it. Um, so I really think geographic location has an effect on people and their emotions. Uh, Relationship status. For a long time, for a long time, um, I did not want to be in a relationship, much less get married one day. I was dead set on not getting married, not being in a relationship. Why? Because I'm selfish. I've admitted that to myself. In some aspects, I am selfish. Well, a year ago, um, my old high school sweetheart just had recently come back into my life, and now we are back together. My whole perspective on marriage and relationships has changed, and it's changing me as a person. I feel myself getting selfish at times, but then I have to step back and be like, okay, I have to consider someone else's feelings before I move. I can't let's balance this out, and it's vice versa because before me, he wasn't in a previous relationship, but in that relationship, he admitted that he was selfish and he had to, you know, take a step back and appreciate what he has. Um, so status, um, it really does take a toll on a person. You want to feel protected. You want to feel like someone is there to listen to you. That's only listening to you, not just to listen. No, to listen to take it all in and to actually help you work out your problems. That you know that you can trust them with this information. Currently, my family status is I do not have any children. Do I plan on having some? Yes, I do. I really do plan on having children one day. And as they say, my biological clock is ticking. So, um, and I low key loathe when people ask me, when am I getting married? When am I gonna have a child? When am I gonna have a family? Like, it just baffles me. Um, my whole family, including my mother, resides in North Carolina. So, besides two uncles that I hardly talk to, no one lives in Virginia. Um, my dad, uh, he lives in Maryland. Uh, I call my mom and my dad. I don't call them enough. And I say that because I'm not used to being talking to everyone every day. Like that's emotionally that is draining to me. So they know I love them. They know I will call them when I can. If I take too long to call them, they call me. People think it's weird I don't talk to my mom every day. Well, I talk to my mom when I need to talk to my mom, you know? And she's just like me. Like she'll be like, "Hey, you forgot about me?" Like she doesn't it's not a big deal to her. So it's not a big deal to me. You know, I've been around my mother all my 18 years of life. when I moved out, it was time for me to go. But my favorite state is we're very close knit family, even though we're in different states. I do talk to my grandmother and my grandfather every so often. They're getting older now, so it's becoming more frequently, and it's about their health most of the time. Um, I'm not able to get down there as much as I would like to, but they know I'm doing what I need to do. I'm in school, I'm working full time, and I have community things that I do out here, so I'm not always able to come to things. But they understand it, and I have my family's full support, which is the best thing anyone could ever do for a person in my position. Influences on identity development, um, I would have to say my mother had a lot to do with it. The way my thought process is, because she was a single parent growing up. So everything that I learned, I basically learned from her. As far as my religious beliefs, going to church, my geographic location, as far as like you living somewhere, find a peace. My relationship statuses. My mother is the exact opposite of me. Like, she is romantic at heart. So I've looked at some of her experiences and I've seen, I'm like, I don't want that. I'm not going to have that in my life. Um, Appearance, as far as appearance, my mother was very fancy, as you can say. She always said, don't go out the house looking any kind of way. Um, things like I said earlier, you shouldn't look like what you've been through, or you shouldn't look like where you come from. Meaning, because we were staying downtown, you know, the perception is, oh, we're dirty. We keep our houses dirty. We keep our clothes dirty, our cars dirty. When in fact, we were one of the cleanest people. You know, every house I went in downtown was clean, spick and span. Everybody was clean, and my mother was really adamant about that because she didn't want me to be jealous of where I was from, but how I can handle myself. And I really, I really owe it all to her about most of my secondary dimension. Definitely, she was one of the influences. My environment is one of my influences. I saw things that I didn't want to be in my life, and I decided I was going to take control and not have it in my life. Of course, I got approached about having drugs or drinking or whatever. And now I do take a drink every now and then, but back then I didn't want it to the extreme of how I was seeing it. I would see bums on the street drinking, just drinking, just to be drinking, and then ask for a quarter to get some more. So I was like, I saw that, and I saw how it was destroying my community, and I really was just thrown aback by it. So my literary connection, um, if I was talking to a preschool um, class, which coincidentally in real life I am a preschool teacher. So we read this book called The True Story of Three Little Pigs. Now, I know this sounds ridiculous. How can a literary connection like The True Story of the Three Little Pigs would a 30-year-old have a connection with? So, to say what's happening in the story, we all know the story of the Three Little Pigs and how the big bad wolf blew it down, ate them up, you know, whatever. But in the true story of Three Little Pigs, it comes from the viewpoint of the big bad wolf, Or in the story, his name is Alexander T. Wolf. And in the story, he explains that the whole reason that he went to the three little pigs' houses was to bake it to get some sugar so he can bake a birthday cake for his granny. So he went to the first two pigs' houses, He huffed and puffed. Well, he wasn't huffing and puffing. He was sneezing. He knocked politely on the door. There was no answer. And all of a sudden, I guess the straw made him sneeze, and he sneezed and he blew the house down, and the pig was already dead. So, being a wolf, he makes a comparison of humans eating. It's almost equivalent to a cheeseburger. You wouldn't leave a cheeseburger out there. So he wasn't going to leave the dead pig out there. So he ate the pig. And that's what happened in the second little pig's house. Of course, made of sticks. He asked politely, he knocked and all that good stuff. And of course, he had to sneeze again. So that's when he quote unquote huffed and puffed. But when he got to the third house, um, made of bricks, the third little pig had the misconception that the wolf was trying to eat him because he was a wolf. So, but the wolf was like, no, I'm trying to get some sugar. And, and the little pig said something bad about Alexander's grandmother. And it was a trigger for him. And I read it and I was like, there has been so many times people have talked about my mother and I just thought about the stories that I've heard about other people, he said something about my mother, so I punched him in the face. That's how the wolf was reacting when someone talked about his grandmother. Um, and I thought it was a real interesting story that in the story he was going crazy, huffing and puffing, trying to beat down the door. And apparently, the third little pig had called the cops and the newspapers, and the newspapers caught the clip of him going crazy because he was reacting to what the little pig had said about his grandmother. Um, and that's how he got locked up. And I thought it was just the most simplest thing that could have happened. The simplest story had the biggest impact on how to teach a child the right thing to do. My mirror window connection, it would definitely be mirror. Like I said, in dealing with the secondary dimension, and as far as appearance is concerned, looking at the book, the three little pigs were scared because all they see is a wolf knocking on their door trying to get in. And they were frightened. And so often people look at me a certain way because of how tall I am, or they'll look at my dark skin and just assume certain things. Like they assume that I play basketball because I'm tall, I'm 5'10". I have never touched a basketball in my life. They think I should model, I'm like, I don't know. No, I was never the model type. Um, and just how people just look at me and say, when I first met you, I did not think you were this nice and considerate. And I'm like, wow. They was like, you didn't have a pretty good smile. I was like, well, maybe I was having a really bad day that day. So when people say that to me, I'm now conscious about how my facial expressions are because I am a person who wears her emotions on her face. I may not say it, but you can see it on my face. So when they say I didn't look happy, I was probably reacting to something, and that's what I need to work on. Um, as far as, but yeah, that was my mirror connections. Um, the theoretical framework that I would put to this would be behavioral. And I'm using behavioral because they're in the secondary dimension, how I view, how appearance is viewed, how individual interests are viewed. It all has to do with the environment and how you put a person in a certain environment. It's going to impact their behavior. If they see certain things going on, they're going to attach themselves to it or either fight or flight. They'll either do it or run, and they may adjust to it at one point, but in my case, I adapted. I adapted to certain things. I adapted to the way my mom talked to me about appearance. I adapted to my religious beliefs. I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. So I adapted, my individual interests, that my environment chose that, for me. I didn't pick the bad ones. I picked the ones that I loved, but they were a product of my environment. Personal experiences, again, someone's environment influences those personal experiences, because without another person or without an environment to be in for those experiences to happen, it wouldn't happen. Socioeconomic status, the environment, the society, America dictates that. How much money you make, how much, the census, it all ties together. The trends I see in society in relation to secondary dimensions, people are starting to become one in their own. When I say that, they aren't caring what society really thinks about them. I still see people who try to fit society's molds, but I'm now seeing individualism come into play as far in all the dimensions of secondary dimensions, as far as appearance, educational background, belief systems, geographic location, relationship status, socioeconomic status, family status. It's all becoming individual. When I say that, what I mean is it's not traditional anymore. People are making a lane for themselves that's comfortable for them. They're not trying to attain the status quo. They're not giving in to society's expectations anymore. You know, and I truly am one of those people. Um, I'm loving it. If just like for instance, my family was crushed when I said I'm not coming home for Thanksgiving. I'm not coming down to North Carolina. I'm staying up here with my boyfriend and his family because that's what I want to do uh this holiday. And they were shocked because I'm so used to going down there or to my father's in Maryland. And I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying home. I will advocate for oppressed populations by telling them it's okay to be individual. It really is okay. You don't have to conform to society's expectations. Um, I would tell the world, hey, America was built on the foundation that anybody can come here and succeed. And that's what needs to be happening right now. Because right now it seems like one we have this image in our head, and if a person doesn't fit that image, then it's wrong. And we need as a society, we need to reject that notion and go back to, hey, it's okay for you to come here and do what you want to do, as long as you abide by the laws of the land that were put out. It shouldn't matter your appearance or where you live or what you believe in or who you're married to or who your family is or how much money you make or your personal experiences. It shouldn't matter. That you should only if that type of that those dimensions affect your character and affect you from having healthy relationships, it should not matter to anyone but yourself. If it makes you happy, then that's what needs to be done. I plan to utilize the literary sources with teachers who are teaching pre-K. This is a great book to teach kids how to think for themselves instead of saying, hey, big bad wolf, maybe he's really not a big bad wolf. If you don't get a chance to know them, how do you know? You know, a child will talk to another child just to see if they're quote unquote nice or if they're quote unquote mean, you know, and I feel if they have that same mindset as they grow up, then they'll be able to be healthy citizens in society. Um, this book teaches them, hey, maybe I shouldn't just look at them and say, hey, I don't like them. You know, maybe I shouldn't take it as face value. I should do my own research. I should form my own opinion. I should talk to this person and get to know them before I judge them, before I say, hey, they're mean or hey, they're not my friend. And it starts in pre-K because as they get older, they're going to say, hey, I have to talk to this person before I really get to know them because we may have something in common. And it does start at that young age. So I would really push for every preschool to read this book in the mindset of teaching the kids to have their own opinions about making friends in the future.